Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here, joining you with John Lenhart, my hero. Hi John.
Hi.
Today we're talking about flow, and it's the conclusion of the flow series that we have started. Now, John, can you please tell us a bit more about the health and flow and how they come together, please?
Right. So a lot of people, their definition of health and what they're talking about is the body's ability to repair. A healthy body is not one that never gets injured or cut. A healthy body is a body that can repair itself once it gets injured. And so if anybody is saying that they want to have the ultimate in health, they have to have flow. Flow is the ultimate in health. That is your body working to the point it's repairing. When you're flowing, you're reversing your sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, and your body is actually repairing. Now, this model of the mind and the brain that I've been working on now for 26 years, we've only shared half of that model publicly.
Yep.
So the half of the model that we've shared is everything that doesn't have to do with sleep. So when I had this model 26 years ago, there's two aspects of the model. One aspect is really how your thought process and how you handle your mental health. And then there's another process, which is sleep, because sleep is a form of flow.
Yep.
And we have not shared our sleep model. I've read all these sleep books. It's, as this model comes out and we start sharing our sleep model, I think people are going to start to see there's things that these sleep people just never understood. In the big picture, what I will tell you is this, is that there are basically about 6 benefits to sleep. 4 of those can be covered by flow.
Yep.
So one of the aspects is that if you're flowing, you don't need to sleep as much. You still need sleep. And there are some aspects of sleep that flow will never cover. However, there are aspects that flow does cover. And I'll give you one example is with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and I've written an article about this, when you think there is a waste product made, it's a protein called amyloid beta, and it covers the dendrites or the trees in your brain. And that's why people have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's and they're unable to think. Sleeping removes that amyloid beta. So when you sleep, what happens is your brain kind of shrinks up like a sponge with all these pores, and cerebral spinal fluid flushes your brain and washes all that amyloid beta out of your system. That's why a nap will help you feel more clear-headed. One of the first signs that someone has Alzheimer's or Parkinson's is that they're elderly and they used to sleep 7 or less hours a night, and now they're sleeping 9 or more hours a night. It's because their body is going, we're not getting rid of all of the amyloid beta. I will tell you another measure of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is that you lose your sense of smell, not through an injury like what happened to you, Colin, but you start losing your sense of smell. And again, I discovered this model of the mind and brain through our sense of smell. So that's how all this is connected. That's how I know this stuff and no one else knows it.
That's amazing, because I was thinking along the lines of the way society works just now. While you were talking to me, I've been triggered inside. Everything we have got now that we watch, televisions, phones, now even street lamps, they're all light emitting diodes. Now the light emitting diodes, the light that they emit actually stops us from producing melatonin, these special lights. Now, what you're talking to there, if people are then systematically not sleeping through not flowing, but then they have the outside things working, so these light emitting diodes causing the little melatonin, they won't be allowing the brain fluid to come in and do this either. So we are talking about getting people into flow. They won't be as addicted to their phones, they won't be as addicted to their screens, which means that there's a better chance of them being able to sleep as well.
Right. Sleep is the most important thing you can do to repair, but it's a form of flow, is my point. And sleep is extremely important. And all these things we're doing is working against sleep. So we've talked about the 4 thought processes. So at 80, right now, you and I are focused. We're at what we call 80. We're talking, we're in our conscious brain. for every 10 amyloid beta molecules we are making in our brain, we are removing one of them. So we're accumulating amyloid beta right now. And this is what makes us tired. When we are at 160 or this drift or this automatic, we're actually creating an order of magnitude more, like 100 amyloid beta. So when you're on your phone, you are clouding up your brain. That's why we have that whole zombie thing. I'm on my phone, asking a question, I'm like, what? Oh, it's like, there it is. So what people think is they think they're resting on their phone, but they're actually causing their brain to accumulate more of that waste product. If you go to 320, you do another order of magnitude, like 1,000 of those molecules. I was in an elementary school class 5 years ago, and when I shared this fact with people, the teachers, they said they had a 5-year-old girl who, when she triggered, after like 90 or so seconds, when she came down for a trigger, she'd always have to take a nap. And I said that was a good thing, because when she triggered, she clouded her brain with all that amyloid beta, and sleep was the only thing at that point that would remove it. When you flow, you're actually removing, more amyloid beta. So at the 10 thought process, you're removing it. When you flow, you're removing it and using it, accumulating. So one of the questions I like to ask people, especially guys who maybe play hockey or play basketball, especially play basketball, I'll say to them, guys my age or younger, I'll say, how long can you go to the gym and play basketball? And they'll say, oh, I could play for like 4 or 5 hours. And I'll say, did you play in school? Yeah. Do you remember how long was practice? Oh, practice was like 90 minutes. And could you do that all day? Oh no, we were exhausted. And I'd say, because you weren't flowing during practice. So one of the keys, I will tell you one of my little secrets now, Colin, is for years, when people used to bring their kids over to my house, elementary school kids or younger, those kids are in flow. Yeah. Those kids can run all day. These people would bring their kids over to the house and say, sorry, John, my 5-year-old is going to run all day. My 5-year-old can run all day. Yeah, he's in flow. And I used to sit there and go, can I try something? And they go, sure. And I'd look at the kid and I'd say, listen, I bet you can't run to that corner of the room and touch it with your right hand, then that corner of the room and touch it with your left hand, then that corner of the room and touch it with your right foot, and that corner of the room and touch it with the left foot. Bet you can't do it 3 times. They go, yeah, I can. They go 1, 2, and they were out. And then we go, what did you do to my kid? Like, I put their kid to sleep. The kid that can run all day. I made them think while they were running around. I pulled them out of flow.
Yeah.
If you pull that kid out of flow, boom, he's exhausted. So that's what we're really talking about, is if you can get yourself in flow like that kid, you could go all day. You're not going to get tired. It's when we focus people and hold them in focus, which is what a lot of self-help people do. Yeah. A lot of executive coaches do. Effort, no pain, no gain. They're not putting you in flow. They're putting you in effort. They're wearing you out. And then you need to continue talking no more. I'm talking about putting you in flow and you never having talked to me again. So this is the healthy place you want to be for your brain.
So what you're saying is we are all adults, but we're really children out of flow. And that's where people don't realize that we had our uniqueness as a child. We've not recognized it because we were taken out of flow through school, through our parents, through friends, traumatic situations, whatever. And then we've tried so much effort to get back to that place where we're a child, where we're having fun, where we're flowing, where we're free again. And I've probably just triggered anyone that's going to be watching this video, because most people in this and all over the world, they literally they're wanting to be happy, they're wanting to flow, they're wanting life not to be, a hassle, a struggle. So they try so hard to get it not to be a hassle and a struggle that they wear themselves out. And this can be how they work through conversations, relationships, anything. When you're living flow, you can literally do all of these things.
Right. So the thing is, though, this is the opposite of what everybody's saying. and we've talked about this through our flow series, is the way to get in flow is to first focus and be resilient and then give up control,
Yeah.
which is the opposite of what every self-help person will tell you, because you're toggling between focus and the opposite of that, giving up control. When you sleep, when you dream, you're flowing. So what does that 10 thought process look like? What does it look like when you're doing the opposite? Well, if you notice, when you're dreaming, when you're in that 10 and you're in flow, there are 5 things that happen that if you were to say, I'm experiencing those things right now, you'd be committed.
Yep.
So when you dream, think about it, you hallucinate, you see things that aren't there.
Yeah.
You're delusional. You
Yeah.
believe things that aren't true. You're disoriented. You're confused about time and place. And we said flow does that to you. You have extreme swings of emotion and you have amnesia. You forget all about it. Well, that's what we're talking about. Is really the healthiest thing is to get into that other half of your brain momentarily. We called it taking a trip to Savantville, a mini vacation, and then coming back. When you're in flow, you're doing the same thing as that dreaming. You're having like little mini dreams, and you're accessing the part of your brain that's the opposite, that if you were in that all day long, they would have you committed. But it's actually the healthiest thing. Just like sleep's the healthiest thing, flow is a mini version of that. And that's why it's so healthy for you. But we as adults go, that's crazy. Don't do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Lose all your energy.
So can I ask a question then, please, while we're on this subject? If I'm able to have a conversation with you and we make some content and we do it, and I do sometimes don't remember what we've spoken about, is that perfectly healthy?
Yeah, because you were in flow. I've done that so many times where I've said stuff and it was awesome. And I don't remember saying it. I've had people come up to me with some of the videos we've made and say, when you said this on this video, I'm like, I never said that. That's amazing. That is amazing, but I never said that. And then I go back and look at the video. I'm like, I don't remember saying that. And that's your unconscious is 90% of your brain. It's smarter than you are consciously. And so when you get in flow, you're going to say things and let your unconscious come out, and you aren't going to consciously know it. That kind of leads to my next point is about flow being the healthiest thing. The unhealthiest thing is injury.
Yep.
And the deal with injury is that your unconscious knows how your body wants to react the right way. So if you give up control of that to your unconscious, you'll never get injured. When you get too conscious and too tight, that's how you get injured. And I talked about this before. There was this quarterback in the United States, Teddy Bridgewater, and when he was with the Vikings, he did a non-contact drill. So he's not going to hit anybody. No one's going to hit him. He did this drill and almost died. How could you do a non-contact drill and almost died? He severed his femoral artery. How does that happen? They have him thinking of so many things and he's so in his conscious brain. Then they try to get him to do stuff physically and they're blocking his unconscious against what he should do. And boom, he injures himself. I help athletes flow so they never get injured.
So, right. So this is just throwing me another way again. So these athletes, when they're playing sports and people when they're doing things that they enjoy, so we're in flow, they get the buzz because they're in flow and they're not thinking. And then what they do is they try and gain this buzz again. And this takes me back to what people do in life. It's like, I did really well there. Now I'm going to really try and do it again. And they can't replicate it. So what we're talking about is when we're in flow, we're able to replicate it because it just flows.
Well, yes, it flows. And then you've hit on something that's really huge. And again, my company is FlowCess, your unique process for flow. You have a process for flow no one else has. And we believe we're the only company who can intentionally help you do that. And the proof was episode 1 in this series. So what tends to happen, Colin, and this is where I really help athletes. And I will tell you, every time I watch these athletic teams go into a hot streak and then suddenly it's gone and they ask the coach where to go. And they're like, I don't know. We were doing everything the same. You weren't. Because here's what happens. I am approaching this event, this, performance, whatever you want to call it, a certain way, from a certain mindset. Let's say I'm just going to go relax and see what happens. And then I go and do it, and I have the best performance of my life. I'm totally in charge of it. It's awesome. It feels great. So tomorrow night when I go do it, I go try to be totally awesome and great. Well, was that where my brain was before I did last night's performance?
Nope.
No, my brain was over here going, I'm just going to relax and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, everything, and we talked about this with happiness. Remember, flow leads to happiness.
Yeah.
And we said this, the key to happiness is not your context and is not what happens out here. It's where your brain was before you experience stuff out here. Flow is the same way. Where was your brain before you did that thing that was super amazing? Put your brain back there, not put your brain towards, I want the effect that I got yesterday. Where was your brain? And that's why athletes are so superstitious. That's why they're so routine oriented, because unconsciously they know I need to keep doing the same thing before the event. I will tell you, I can help you know exactly what those things are so you can do them every time. Because right now, every athlete and every person is kind of shooting in the dark on what works or what doesn't work.
And it just shows that it doesn't even matter if you're an athlete, you know, it's an artist, a person just living their life, going to work, running a business, you know, being in a relationship. All these things have one thing in common, and that is flow. And if it's working well, you're flowing. If it's not, you're not flowing. So when people go to try and change the actual acts and they try and change the actual things that they're doing to get back to that place, they're then injuring themselves. Yeah. Whether it be mentally, physically, or injuring somebody else because they've now come out of the context and trying to kind of force it, you know. And this is why I feel that what you do and what Flowcess does, and what I do as well, is so important, and to allow people to see how they can do it in purpose, you know, because the way that they're trying to do it in purpose, they're not doing it. But there is a way where they can do it in purpose and get to that state of flow.
Right. It's unique to them. So I want to end this, Colin, with the opposite of injury. Okay. And a topic I think I would love to get your thoughts on, and that is superhuman strength.
Nice.
So we all know there are instances where, like, a baby gets trapped under a car and a person is able to suddenly lift that car and get that kid out. And it's like, wait a minute, how was that person able to lift something that was like a ton? What's your explanation for that, Colin?
Well, my explanation is when they get into the situation, they don't have time to think. So what happens is they're in flow pretty much. So yes, there's a situation that triggers them, yeah, and there will be some, you know, body kind of chemicals that are going about there that gives them that, but they'll be flowing while they're doing it because it's just, I have to. It's not how do I, and then they overthink it. They just go ahead and do it.
Right. So if you think about this, we know, so this is where the scientist in me takes over. Okay. We know there are instances where these people are able to exhibit strength beyond what they can consciously do. This person can't consciously lift 400 pounds, but they lifted 400 pounds to save that person's life. Okay. So it, just like you said, they weren't thinking. So what happens is the unconscious, in that moment, they're focused on this issue, and their unconscious can now take over. Their unconscious knows how to move the body in order to do that. Their unconscious knows how to supply all of this stuff. So there was an article written in July 8th, 2019 about superhuman strength. And I think this article kind of summarizes everything I feel about flow versus what the rest of the world feels. So here you have this guy writing this article and it's a long article, and he's documented all this superhuman strength stuff and all these possible reasons why and all that, and it's all physical. Everything in the article is all about the physical. And the thing is, there's one paragraph in the article. In this long article, there's one paragraph where he actually has the answer and doesn't realize it. Now I'm going to read you the paragraph. He says, psychological rather than physiologic factors determine the limits of performance.
Yeah.
So what you know, because we know like all these examples of like no one could break the 4-minute mile, and then the minute Roger Bannister breaks it, everybody's breaking it. We know there are psychological barriers to what our bodies can do. We all know that, which is akin to saying they had no idea. So what happened was they said, you know, we know psychological things affect it, but when we say that, we are saying we have no idea how this works.
Yeah.
Chalking something up to psychological factors is, in science, the equivalent of a shrug. So what he says in this, and I wrote this guy and said, do you want the answer to this? Never wrote back. They reprinted the article recently. Nothing. It always shocks me when some reporter, somebody in the press, puts something out there and points everybody to an issue. And if I write them and say, I got an answer, why do they never contact someone who has the answer? Do they really not want the answer? I mean, I think it speaks to their integrity that they're just not really writing this because they really care about it. They're just doing it for a job. But here's something that's really important. This entire article focuses on physiological aspects, except for one paragraph. And in that paragraph, they essentially say, this probably is the only answer, but we don't have a model for the mind and the brain. That's literally what that paragraph is saying, is because we don't have a model for the mind and the brain, there's no way we can know it. So it's a sense of saying a shrug, and too bad for psychology. They can't explain themselves well enough to sort this out.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And just while we're on this subject of superhuman strength, the way that I explain to people about this is, if you get a Westerner like us, okay, where we're conditioned through school, we're not allowed to hunt, we're not allowed to fight, we're not allowed to do these things because it's, how can I put it? Like it's a crime, you know. So if you take us out to the wilds, so somewhere in a jungle, somewhere where they're not society molded, if we were to get in a physical fight with one of these people, right, regardless of size, there's a good chance that we're going to lose because we're conditioned to have, you know, these restraints and these orders to hold us tight, and it doesn't allow our brain to go. So it would need something to really trigger, but by that time it would be too late. We would be beaten by these people who have not been conditioned the same way we have.
Right, and I help, you know, I have helped coaches, help athletes demonstrate superhuman strength, demonstrate endurance, and all of this stuff. But there are a lot of people out there, especially in the press, who think that all this flow stuff is just fairy dust and doesn't even exist, and that's fine. But you know what? You and I are helping people in their regular lives,
yes,
you know, and so that's the direction we'll go.
Yes. Karma trillionaires, John. Listen, thank you so much for today, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.